Family business ideas. How do we get them started? What's it look like? Is it a good idea? We'll talk through it.
As entrepreneurs and business owners, we know that if we have a clear plan, anything becomes possible. And if you can have a clear plan, a clear process to create that plan, and a way to create clarity with your partner or spouse, you can drive to amazing heights.
So when it comes to starting a business together as a family, there's a ton of different ways to look at it. But there's three primary things I'm going to suggest you to consider. First off, setting up the ground rules and making sure that everybody's on the same page. Second, defining what are the ideas and how can we approach those. And then third, once it's running, what are the ongoing expectations and communication plan? And we'll hit those high level today. So my name is Kris Kluver. I've helped people all over the world build businesses. I started my first of 16 when I was 19. I'm in a family business myself. I've helped people build and restructure multi-billion-dollar family nonprofits, big family offices, things like that. So this isn't something to take lightly. And to be very blunt, when you're going into business with family, candidly, you're dancing with the devil a little bit. It's really, really important to establish the expectations and guidelines early. And what I mean by that is make sure, what is everybody planning to do? How are we looking to do this? I worked with a family actually in the Middle East that was huge. It was a $400 million project. And it doesn't matter if it's a $400 million project or you guys are looking to buy an ice cream shop. Same essence happens. We want to make sure that for you guys, Thanksgiving is just as much fun as it has been in the past, and that you're on the same page. So first off, make sure you're clear on financial expectations. Rarely is a family equal financially, so if people are making contributions, fair enough, but what are the contributions everybody's making? And if we need additional contributions, what is that going to look like? How do we set that up for success to start with? What are the expectations in those financial realms? The second, and this one is one of the bigger ones that people tend to kind of sweep under the rug, but it's time. What is the time investment that people are expected? How much time are we looking to contribute to this? And in some cases, people are like, well, I thought I was just putting money in. It's like, well, I'm putting the majority of the money in. I thought you were going to run the place. So remember, the only three things in the world we can leverage are our time, our talent, and our treasure. So if you have the time, how are we contributing to that? And make sure that it's clear on who's doing what and what those expectations are. Now, let's say that you do have a unique talent. Maybe in some cases, maybe you could be a bookkeeper and you have that experience and you want to be a bookkeeper for the family office. What I would recommend is that you outline the expectations, that maybe you act as you're wearing a hat that says I'm bookkeeper and you contract as the bookkeeper. But we want to make sure that for the success of the company, for the success of the business, that we have the best people in those seats. Or maybe down the road, you're like, I don't want to be bookkeeper anymore. So we need to factor in, how do we potentially transition you out as bookkeeper and you sit in only as owner. But creating clarity on the roles, the expectations, what are the goals of the business? Some people think, oh, we're going to build this business and it'll be a cash cow and we'll take a lot of money out each year or each quarter or each month. Other times people are like, no, I just want a place to invest some money and I want this to be my retirement and I want it to keep building inside. You've got to have these conversations early. And this is where making sure you have a really good document, a good operating agreement, because likely you'll put this in, I'm guessing, probably an LLC, but it's an operating agreement that says this is how things work. If we end up in an argument or if somebody wants to leave or somebody's not happy, how do we handle those things? It's best to create those documents with a quality business attorney, not somebody who may be an attorney but they aren't a business attorney. You want somebody who's done a lot of these, who can help advise you on the right structure with that. Set the agreement up early, and that way everybody gets along. When everybody's in a happy mood, it's a great time to set those things up. Great fences make great neighbors. Great operating agreements make for great partners. I have one business or two businesses I've been in for almost 15 years now with a godfather of mine. And our operating agreement's over 30 pages long. It's very, very clear on how that works. I genuinely don't think we'll ever have to do it, but it's nice to know that it's there if in the unfortunate eventuality that some sort of challenge comes up. So the first thing when you're starting that small business and ideas around this is to invest the time and energy here. Now, let's talk about what businesses we should start. What are those different areas that we can be successful in? In my book, The Aspiring Solopreneur, we have a course on this, and you can take the same tools from the Solopreneur course and use this in your family business and how you're looking to build that. But I would start with, what are the skill sets that fall within the family already? Is there a unique expertise? Is there a certain amount of experience? Is there something that you guys as a family already like? It's the kind of thing that if you're an expert in finance or something along those lines and you want to go start a coffee shop, my head explodes because you know nothing about that other space or whatever it may be. And instead we want to shift out of this, versus if you could come up with a different business around with a financial spin or adjacent to it, there's the opportunity to come up with something great that is a higher dollar that you already know a lot about. So when you start thinking about the ideas, go through and if you can whiteboard, I have a huge whiteboard in my office. I love having the ability to come together and whiteboard everything. And what are the skills? What are the areas we like? What's of interest? Are there hobbies? What are those other areas? And then start looking at it, and do you see any crossovers? Are there any synergies where maybe we have 2 or 3 people that, we actually like doing this, and how can we come together on those? So that's gonna be one of the first steps. Once you start coming down to some ideas, then I'm gonna suggest that you insert yourself into those spaces and try and solve the problem as if you were what is the problem you're solving? And then if you were a potential client or target audience, how would you get in front of them? And how would, if you were that person, how would you be solving that issue? How can you do that? And it's an easy way to do it by looking at it and saying, okay, all right, so we're gonna start a financial planning business. We know something about that. How do we go about doing that? And you can start looking at how others are doing it and say, yeah, but you know what? We have teachers in the family, and we have a bunch of educational experience, and we happen to have some agricultural family business. All right, now you're creating a really interesting, unique niche that could potentially come together more so. So I'm not sure if that's making a lot of sense, but hopefully the idea is you guys figure out what you're interested in, explore what it looks like on the internet, and then actually go and start talking to people. And if there may be, if it's a big business or a different area, I would encourage you to go to trade shows or find other people that are doing it and see, are these your people? Do you share values with these people? Or is this like, man, this feels icky? Believe in that stuff. There's something to that. And if you can go and say, no, this is it, I like this, this is fun, you're probably going into the right direction when you're looking at the ideas. So our first step is making sure that you guys are crystal clear on expectations and you have some way of papering it, putting documents around it to make sure that you guys set that up. The second is to list out all the opportunities that you guys have, that you guys are strong. What are your experiences, expectations, and then what are the interests? And then start to see, do we have any crossovers? And then as you start coming closer with some of those ideas, wonderful, then start to explore those and vet those out. Once you do that, there's a bunch of steps in between when you actually launch, and please feel free to watch other videos on this channel where we talk about this, or you're welcome to reach out to me directly. But what we do, what I'm gonna suggest then is once you're up and running, this is another area that I've seen people just sort of whistle past the graveyard and hope that it works out. It doesn't. Be clear early on what the expectations are in the long run. Because if somebody's saying, well, I'm giving the money and you're doing all the work, somebody's like, whoa, that's not what I thought I was doing at all. And the business is running tight and we need somebody in there. It's like, yeah, well, I thought we were both working on this. Be clear on what those expectations are afterwards. But then also be clear on the expectations of what does this look like on an ongoing basis? How are we going to communicate? And generally, when it comes to doing the final vet before you're ready to launch a business, I would encourage you to look and wear your hat as an investor. And again, I talk about this in the book, but think of yourself, the family unit, as an investor in this company. And then if family members are working in the company, they need to be considered employees and they have to be compensated fairly, time-wise, and understand that just because they're an employee doesn't mean that they aren't an owner, but they need to act as an employee in that business. And the reason we do this is it makes sure that the business is going to be able to stand on its own 2 feet. It's economically viable. You have the finances there. But then also really make sure, okay, we are going to come together once a month as the owners, the family unit that's the owners, and we'll discuss these things. Now, if you're in multiple seats, this is where the potential for friction comes out, but being clear on what that is. And this is also where you have to, I've unfortunately been involved with this. Sometimes we have to fire a family member who's a quote employee because they aren't doing a very good job. Doesn't mean that they're no longer an owner, but it does mean that we could hire somebody better for the business. And having those conversations in advance can be really helpful. But going forward, how are you going to communicate on a regular basis? Do we have this awareness? What are the expectations on the money? If it means that, hey, I thought we were going to be paying ourselves, and I thought we were going to be, paying down our debt, make sure that you guys are all clear on that. And what are the voting rights, and how do we have those discussions? And how do we have, when we do have conflict, how are we going to make sure that we get to a healthy, positive resolution? And sometimes having an outside facilitator really, really helps with that. So with that, when it comes down to what are the family business ideas, how do we get there? It really, and the thing is, like I said, you're dancing with the devil. This has wrecked more families than I can imagine, but it's really wonderful when it works well. And you can make it work well if you establish these things in advance. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me directly, make a comment here, or follow this channel, and we look forward to hearing from you. Keep smiling.